Has also joined us a little bit later on. He's had his graduation ceremony today, so about 2 years after.
Anything that's particularly unique about the beer, we've been discussing. I can't believe you're eating it long time. We've got a team behind the camera. They will be collecting your questions. They'll be passing the most sensible of them through to us.
Ask them now. Oh, you see it on there.
In the room, hopefully we've got some bits of paper and pens, have we got? Or we just ask people for that?
Just ask questions.
Right. In the room, you'll be asked to put your hand up, you ask a question. We'll repeat your question for the benefit of the people watching at home, and then we'll do the answer. Also, after discussing each beer, we will be taking on a specialist subject. As always, we'll start out with our highlights of the last month and then go on to talk about the beer with the team from Roosters and the collab beer. We'll talk about how brewery like Roosters, which is traditional in its origins, has had to adapt to craft beer because these guys have been around the whole. What are we, 27 years now?
30 next year.
30 next year? Wow. I thought the 25th was like a couple of years ago.
It feels like it.
Right, it feels like, right. So 30 years next year for Roosters. Well, yeah. And then we will conclude by talking about what is coming up event-wise and in what's next month. So, like Wayne said, if you have feedback, want to be in the audience next time, you can get your feedback through to info@brewyork.co.uk. Easy for me to say.
Could someone do me a favour and feed back to the bar team? Can we turn the music off, please? That'd be appreciated, thank you.
Well, maybe down, I don't know if it needs to be on.
With all the apologies, if you can hear me at home, apologies for the audio issues. If you're going to be in the audience, apologies for the audio issues. Just trying to rein it all in, get it all sorted right now. Hopefully you'll be able to hear us okay.
Are we all good audio-wise?
So hopefully we've fixed the couple of audio issues we've got. If we haven't, we'll fine-tune it. Apologies about that. We've got the first beer we've got up tonight, which I've almost drank already because I've had my spicy chicken thighs and I needed a first quencher.
Wow.
First beer up's
Really?
Lemony Snippet. So for once, I'm not actually drinking a really strong beer. I'm drinking a 2.5% Radler. So it's actually really refreshing, especially if you've had peri-peri chicken thighs. So joining us tonight at Handley Tap launch, we've got Frangos who do Portuguese Chicken. It's amazing. So if you've never tried it, they're a York-based food vendor. Give them a go. And Lee's super jealous because I've been eating it while he's been talking.
Yeah, I guess I'll eat man's food later on.
So yeah, really enjoyed that, but it also got a bit of spice to it. So I don't think my mum will be trying any tonight. It'll be the might be a bit spicy for you. So perfect pairing with a lemon Radler. So 2.5% lemon Radler, Lemony Snippet. We brewed this beer. It's been a long time in the making. We've talked about making one for a while. We launched it a few weeks back now. Really enjoyable drink for the weather that we've got at the moment. So especially if there's a heat wave next week, you might want a Radler to refresh yourself. It's a really easy drinking beer, Hella style lager. So we brew it as a malt forward lager. We've then got a traditional lemonade backbone to it. So we've incorporated. You'll have to pronounce it. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called lemon comminute. So basically, if you puree entire lemons, so you get in the zest, the pith, and then the fruit in the centre, that is what you call comminute. And that's what we've used in the tanks with this beer to extract as much lemoniness as we possibly can, as well as a little bit of the kind of bitterness, tanginess that you get with the zest and the pith.
So one of the things when we normally use fruit in beer, we use a lot of concentrate or we use puree. Concentrate gives you a bit more intense flavour. So I think if we were to brew this again, we might incorporate a bit of concentrate. But hopefully you agree with me. It's just really refreshing. It's 2.5%. It's really easy drinking. When the weather's nice or you've got a spicy chicken thigh, you might want to have a refreshing lemon Radler. So the name, does anyone know where the names, punny names come from?
We must know this one.
So obviously, Lemony Snicket, yeah, a series of unfortunate events, a very popular book series for children or young adults. We thought the pun worked pretty well with the accessible strength of the beer. We certainly aren't promoting it to young adults, but it was it's
just
quite,
in case the Portman group has watching.
It was just a nice fun name, so we thought we'd use that on this beer. And yeah, the styles work pretty well. We've done quite a few events this season so far, and we put this beer on, and it seems to be a really popular choice. The bit that I guess irks us a little bit as brewers is the feedback of it's been great. So people have been giving us nice positive feedback about the beer, but then they go on to the dreaded Untapped, and it's our lowest ever rated beer on Untapped, which bemuses us because we think it's a great example of the style. But unfortunately, it's a low ABV beer, so even if it is a great example of the style...
I can give you a perfect example, and this kind of sums Untapped up in a nutshell. One of the comments said, really refreshing, perfect for the current weather, 3 out of 5. You are going to be asked about Untapped, don't you worry, Al. I know you'll have some opinions on this. So yeah, unfortunately the way that Untapped seems to work is there's a limit on how high you can rate a style. Apparently really good beer can only be in exceptionally strong IPAs or exceptionally strong or barrel-aged stouts. Apparently there's no such thing as a 5 out of 5 bitter, and there's no such thing as a 5 out of 5 Radler. Apparently they don't exist. So people just rate entirely on their personal opinion of that beer rather than how well that represents the style that it's trying to be. So yeah, this is a big bugbear for me and Wayne, and I'm sure Ol will say exactly the same when he comes on camera. And probably add a few of his own thoughts to that.
So it's not, to be fair, it's not the underworld. It's just one of those little things that irks us. The most important thing for us, if you guys enjoy it and you buy it and you drink it, then that's enough for us. Vote with your wallet. If you like a beer, buy a beer. We don't worry too much about what Untapped says. If the beer doesn't sell, that's a sign that there's something wrong with it. So we'll worry about it in that sense. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Like I said, it's quite refreshing for the weather. It's one of the interesting things, because of the lemon we've added, is it is quite like a modern style haze on it, but that wasn't intentional. It was lagered for 6 or 7 weeks, I can't remember.
7, I believe.
So 7 weeks we lagered this beer, which is far more than we do any sort of standard modern style. So for a 2.5% beer, that's a lot of time in tank. So before we added the lemon, it was a crystal clear lager. The lemons brought the haziness to it. So, but yeah, it doesn't impact the flavour. Doesn't do anything negative. It's actually works really well.
Before we move on to our highlights of the month, you'll know that we like to involve you guys. So I think last month we asked you to come up with your puns or your beer names for celebrities that we have not yet done. So this month, because we've done this beer that relates to an author or it relates to a book, your challenge this time is to come up with beer names that relate to books or beer names that relate to authors. So we want your suggestions in the room shortly, and we want your suggestions under this video, and we will read out the best of them later on this evening.
And we also want an idea from Al as well, when you get on camera.
On the spot there,
Pun away. So go on and tell us your highlights of the month. I'm guessing you're wearing this top for a reason, to show your highlights of the month?
Well, I might have had a few more tattoos done, yeah. So yeah, had a bit more work done on my slipknot sleeve. I've had Jim Root added around the back here. Actually, as we sit here now, this should have been finished.
Yeah.
But my tattooist, rather than completing this, decided to go off and do a permanent makeup course yesterday. So
next time he comes round, he'll have a scouse brow and all sorts.
So early next month, I'm having that concluded, and I'm being a bit cheeky here, and I'm having 2 personal highlights this month, because my other personal highlight is having the last couple of Sundays out with my wife. Something we rarely have the opportunity to do now. And
What do you mean? We didn't go anywhere.
Well, the first one, we ended up in the Black Horse on Montgate, popped in, I said, we'll have a quick pint of Yankee. There's no such thing as a quick pint of Yankee. Once you've had one, you've got to have at least 2, if not 8. So ended up there, having a few, felt terrible last Monday, and then we thought we'd go out this Sunday, just gone and pretty much repeat the same thing. I've never been good at learning that lesson.
Sunday sessions in York are brilliant. They're such an enjoyable day to go out, because it's a lot quieter, because the tourists aren't out in their droves. The stag and hen do certainly aren't out, but it's also nice because it's just a chilled out, relaxing atmosphere, and you can get a great Sunday lunch as well. So I would highly recommend a Sunday in York.
Right, let's mix it up this one. So before I do my work highlight of the month, what's been your personal highlight this month?
So likewise, I got a bit of a break with the family. So myself, Sal, and her family went to a camping pods in Chesterfield, or just outside of Chesterfield. So nice fancy little glamping pod for the weekend, and it was just fun to get out, chill out, and leave work behind. And I say leave work behind. We drank plenty of cans of Brew Uk beer, but yeah, it was just nice to get away. And our little dog Tia, who's 15, I've never seen her so full of life, running around between the pods and stuff. If you see us normally, we're carrying her because she's a bit tired, but yeah, you wouldn't have known that at the weekend. It was a lot of fun.
Superb. And your dad was just telling me there's some of those pods being built just up the road from here.
So when people want to come and stay, we'll put them in the glamping pods.
Apparently, what's going to be maybe a 10-minute walk from here, the 8-minute walk from here, there's going to be some pods. So yeah, you'll be able to camp and crawl back from here, I guess.
Yeah, come and stay at visit the new Handley Tap Room and stay in a glamping pod.
So work-wise, I would say my highlight of the last month has been the 4-day drinking bender we went on in Bristol and then Wales. So we did Bristol Craft Beer Festival, we then went across to Barry, we did a live thing with Simon and Mel from Real Craft Beer, and then we went across to
Brew Republic,
thank you.
And we started the whole thing off with Friday night drinking with Northern Monk on this time last month.
Yeah. So this time last month, that was the first night doing this with Northern Monk. So I'm not good at second day drinking, so you can imagine what I was like by day 4.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of fun that, and my highlight was probably Monday just gone. We did our what's supposed to be, or we target being a quarterly staff celebration, team get together. So we went down to the beer hall to do a bit of a team update, give them an update on what's going on, and then we had a fair few drinks in the brewer's yard, which is almost complete now. So we sat outside in the gorgeous weather, John, our director of bar operations, and a few help from other people, cooked us up some barbecue food. Just lots of fun, chilled out atmosphere. And Digby, if you've been to our beer hall, you'll know who Digby is. He's the very loud, theatrical guy. Did a quiz for us all. It was lots of fun. And Lee was really happy because he beat my team.
I think I shaded you by half a point, but half a point's enough.
So we've actually behind already, 3 minutes behind. No, we're not. We're ahead.
So we'll take a couple of questions in a second. Before we do that, I think we should probably give a shout out to John, Alison, Liam, Daisy, the team that have done all of the work downstairs to pull this together for tonight. So could I ask for a cheeky little round of applause for those guys?
They're looking up wondering what the noise is and not knowing why, but yeah.
Well, they'll have to watch back on YouTube to find out what that was all about then. Right. So I think we'll start fielding some questions, but all perhaps you would like to come and join us on camera, and you can get involved with some of the question answering. So we're going to be doing, and we'll sort you out with the mic, so yeah, all from Roosters is just about to join us on camera. So in a little bit, we will be doing a little bit of a deep dive on Roosters, where they come from, the journey they've been on, what Ol's role is in the business, etc. So start thinking about your questions that you would like to put to Ol now. Start getting them under this video, passed across to the team, and then I think it's at the end of beer 3, we'll be having a little chat with Ol in depth.
Can I just point out, I'm not really far away, I'm just a lot smaller than you two.
It's a scale.
So Ol said something similar off camera earlier, and I said, we're going to make you look skinny. Don't worry about it.
Which I read, so you think I look fat? You know.
Okay.
Anyway.
I've doubled down on that one.
So we met the guys from Roosters a couple of years, or maybe a year before we started our journey in brewing. We went down and had a cheeky tour of the tap room on a IBD.
Institute of Brewers and Distillers. You did an open day.
I did so it was the morning after the night before, wasn't it? And I did, the Saturday I opened the brewery up on our old site. I opened it up for people to come and have a look around, and these guys rocked up.
And I see that you've just cheekily shared the photo of that day.
Oh yeah, if anyone hasn't seen the photo,
go onto his Instagram.
The three of us.
Well, we both look considerably.
You haven't changed.
I think I'm a bit bigger now.
Well, I was considerably less hairy and slimmer. Well, we were both considerably slimmer at that point in time. But
you look like you've just come straight from choir practice or something like that.
But no, it was great because we've always had all of his team, the brewery on a pedestal. They make some of the best cask beer in the UK. It's got to be said. There are people that I know that they go to a pub and you ask them what they're going to drink and they go, I'll have the Roosters cask. They don't even care what the name is. They just know it's so solid, it's so reliable, that's what they want to drink. They've made magnificent beers for many a year now, and we were privileged to go down on that day and get a little tour around, and then right at the end of it, he said, there's the pile of damaged beer.
That's
help
right.
yourself.
We just started canning. And then, I think we'd been canning for about 6 months or so at that point,
And I think we saw your jaw hit the floor as me and Wayne literally grabbed as many as could physically be carried.
I've never known anyone rock up to a brewery before with a wheelbarrow.
I was heading to rugby. I can't remember which. I think it was the Rugby World Cup when it was held in England, and we did absolutely terrible. And in my old work, they'd managed to get me some tickets to go see it. And I remember just thinking, I'll just drink loads of beer on the train. So I was me and my boss got on the train, and I dumped out all these dented cans. He was like, "Where have you been?" I was like, I'll tell you a story about that. So Babyface Assassin, we got to the game, and we were a bit drunk before we got there, needless to say.
So do we have any questions either in the audience or online, Rachel, that we're able to pass through?
I've got one on the chat.
Yeah, what was that?
Given the comments around Eastleigh and Untapped, is there another style that we want to tickers, we feel lovers.
Is there another style that we want to put out that will challenge the untapped tickers?
I did ask. I'll go off on a tangent about Untapped, but I'll let you answer that.
Well, we did one with Stuart North Riding, which I thought was a stroke of genius. It was actually Stu's idea, and we brewed an IPA and we called it a Sessionable Dipper. Because the style police, as we like to refer to them, would have absolutely hated that. And they did, and they took us to task over it, but we just laughed at every minute of it.
Yeah. Well, that's my kind of. I think we share the same feelings on Untapped. If you'll allow me a couple of minutes, just to.
By all means.
I went. I started. It was a Monday morning. I started mashing in at 6:30 one Monday, probably 6 or 7 years ago. We were bottling our beer at the time, and we bottled Yankee, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the flagship beer of the brewery. It's kind of like the beer that the previous owner Sean built the brewery on. And we started bottling it. And at 6:30 I was mashing in one morning and I checked Twitter and I saw someone had moaned, complained, and then through Untapped there is no option other than to tag the brewery in. And then you let everybody else know. I mean, it's all just opinion. It's all subjective, you know. But then you tag the brewery in and then you let all your followers know what you think. So I was mashing in and I checked it and it just said someone was completely. They used some really, really weird adjectives, I think, and they were sort of like, I was amazingly underwhelmed by, you know, and I just. So I read his thing, and at no point did he criticise the quality of the beer. He was basically saying, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So I put out a tweet saying, I love Untapped, isn't it great at 6:30 on a Monday morning that, can I swear?
Yeah.
Isn't it great at 6:30 on a Monday morning to find out that someone thinks you're shit at your job? And within 2 or 3 hours, that got retweeted, and the guy who wrote the initial Untapped thing, came back to me and said, oh, I presume you're talking about me then? And I said, yeah, as it goes, yeah. You know, I hope I'm not offended, but what can you describe to me what it was that you didn't enjoy? And he said, well, I was expecting a hot bomb, I was expecting this and I was expecting that. I said, well, why were you expecting that? Because it doesn't say it on the label, it doesn't say, you know, we're brewing this beer that's, you know, I think there's 23 years that this beer's been brewed, and we're trying to replicate it and represent it as best we can in bottle. It doesn't say it's a hot bomb, it doesn't say this, doesn't say that. So what was the problem? Was it off? If it was, what flavours were you experiencing? Because I'd like to know, so we'll feed it back to me, and I'll feed it back to the team. And he backed down in the end. I don't mean he wasn't aggressive or anything. I wasn't aggressive, but he had kind of backed down and he just said, "Well, it wasn't what I expected it was going to be." And I said, "Well, we didn't give you that expectation. You've
made it for yourself."
I said, and you've told me you were expecting a hot bomb, but we haven't told you it was a hot bomb. It wasn't this and that." And all the time through this conversation, Untapped were tagged in, and a few other people chipped in, and I ended up getting the CEO of Untapped contacted me from New York and said, "Can we have this conversation offline, please? Here's my email address." And I never emailed him because I thought, well, no.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's if you've got this platform where you're inviting people to give their opinion, and it's as subjective as it is, and they're entitled to their opinion, that's fine. But if you're allowing them to do that and then to broadcast it, you know, this guy might have 1,000 followers or something like that. He's then persuading other people, and all the time we're getting tagged in. So I just ignored it and I thought, no, if you cannot take criticism on a public platform where you actively want people to be honest about what they're experiencing, I'm not emailing them and doing it on the QT. Anyway, within about 3 months' time, I got a message from this chap, and he was just fully apologetic. He says, "I am so completely sorry. I was wrong to do that. I love the beer. I've learned more about the beer. I know what I should have been expecting, and all of this kind of thing." And it was really, really nice. I think I bumped into him at the Great British Beer Festival as well, and we had a pint together. It was really, really it was all really nice that it came out. And around the time, I actually I'm strongly thinking about launching my own app. That I finishing. So,
Rates consumers.
when you're rating a beer, there's like tick boxes that you go through. What's the style? And then it shows you what you should expect from the style. Did it hit this, 1 to 5? Was it that colour? Was it clear? Was it hazy? Whatever the style determined. And you go through, and off flavours, and actually teach people about off flavours, diacetyl, DMS, acetaldehyde, and educate them at the same time.
I think one of the things we should do is like Uber style feedback. So you get to rate your ride, and then they get to rate you back. So someone rates you on Untapped, we get to rate them back. Cannot read a label. 1 out of 5.
Why not educate people at the same time as they're tasting it, and they're encouraged to sort of go on social media and say X, Y, and Z, because to be honest, some of them. They might as well, sorry.
I like this rate the review. Because we could go back into their Untapped history and go, well, actually, your last pint was a Foster's, so your opinion is not valid.
Because this
invalid,
because you can go through and someone might drink a YPA, a cask YPA of ours, which is so soft and so delicate and lightly hot. But they could have been on the piss for 8 hours and been drinking
double IPAs.
But no, for most Untapped, I don't really read it anymore. But you might as well, 90% of Untapped, you might as well just have a tick box that says, not to my taste. Because that's ultimately what most of them are.
Exactly, don't like this style.
My grandma had died at the time, and she left me a little bit of money, and I did strongly think about
investing that into your own app.
In doing that app, but I bought a car instead.
So we've got the second beer we need to move on to. So I think in the audience, Ant's going to be bringing you some beers out. So in the meantime, we'll remember to change this while we've still only had one beer. Only had one beer.
If you don't count the 3 we have on camera.
And the one I'm still drinking on camera. While we move on to...
Yeah, while those beers are coming in, have we got any questions in the room? First hand's gone up. Difference between a lager and a Radler? Well, a lager is a bottom fermented beer that then has to be stored cold for a period of time. Most traditionally 3 months. A Radler is essentially a shandy made with a lager. You take a traditional lemonade, you blend it 50-50 with a lager. Most commonly it has to be a Hellas lager if you're going totally traditional. A lager that comes out of Munich. It's just the German version of shandy.
Delicious.
So Diana Voss, you'll be really interested to know, is our first ever... Well, I won't get it. We'll get into this in a second. I won't take Lee's thunder.
You're going to talk about puns. While we're on the Voss. Sorry.
Yeah, well, right. So, this beer is called Diana Voss, obviously a nod to Diana Ross, who most recently played the Legends slot at Glastonbury. Actually did a bit of a mini UK tour while she was over here to do that for Glastonbury. So, the Motown legend of all Motown legends. So we called it Diana Voss because the Voss element refers to a yeast type called Ragnar Voss, which is a type of creek yeast, and it comes from Norway, and it's a yeast that just loves to be abused. Most traditional yeast, you need to ferment it at a nice temperature, about 20-22 degrees C at the highest. You go above that temperature, you start to generate alcohols that are not very nice for your head, and you start to generate flavours that you're not going to enjoy. If you use this type of yeast, you can ferment it as high as 40 degrees C. And because you're going warmer, it works faster. It will ferment out the beer, it will create all the alcohol it's going to do, sometimes in 2 days. 2 days, compared to a standard yeast, which might be a week.
When I brewed it, I think 36 hours.
36
hour fermentation, opposed to 72, 90 hours.
And it just doesn't have those metabolic pathways that would lead to some of these off flavours like the diacetyl that you referred to a little bit ago. So what's really unique about this beer for us is that we have used English hops. I have had to bite my fist, listen to my brewers, and allow English hops into our brewery for the first ever time. So Wayne's dad Russ is applauding loudly in the back of the room for that one. So my reluctance to use English hops in our brewery is, well, Wayne and I loved the American beers. We called it Brew York. It was about having an American inspiration. It was about, therefore, using American hops. And English hops, at least traditionally, were considered to be kind of twiggy or earthy. Whereas the development programs of hops in the UK are now leaning more towards American-type characteristics. So they're citrusy, they're more floral. And two of the latest ones that have come to market, the pretty much latest is one called Harlequin. And then one that came about maybe a couple, 2-3 years before that is one called Olicana. So we have been persuaded by the hop merchants, Charles Farman, to give these things a go. But Beth is their North rep, a lovely lady. I was drinking with her at Costa at your birthday a little while back. And they came and did what we call a rub with us, which is you'll take the hop cone, the flour, you rub it, you press the oils into your pan, you smell those, and then the hope is that what you're smelling there is then what's going to be realised in the beer.
Yeah.
And my reluctance to use English hops in the past was because of the twiggy, the earthiness, but also because of how that smelled wasn't always how it translated into the beer. And I think that was probably down to how well they were packaging the hops before they came to us. So they've invested in the technology that means they do that better. And
okay.
so I need to eat my words in that I swore we wouldn't use English hops. I'd have this in my top 3 for beers of the years. I'm really proud of what we've managed to do with this beer. So, bar the fact that we're tied in on some sizable contracts for American hops with other people, I would like us in the future to do more of this kind of thing with the guys at Charles Farm using these type of English hops.
I've just recently brewed with a couple of new English varieties. So I mean, we do use English varieties as well as New Zealand, American, Australia. I've never brewed with Harlequin before, so I've not been able to get my hands on it. So I'm interested to try this. Olicana I brewed with when it first hit the scene. There was a really nice one I brewed with only on Tuesday, Ernest.
Oh yeah.
If you've seen that had an incredible. So like Lee was saying on the rub, what you get on the rub, if you like it, you really hope, if you've got hand the hops here, you hope that it'll transpire and transfer itself into the glass 2-3 weeks later. And Ernest did not disappoint. It was like tutti frutti, the sweets you see, tutti frutti. It's like really nice candy kind of sweetness. It was just like a real fruit basket. And to smell that, if it was on a blind rub, I wouldn't have really said that was a UK hop. It was incredible. But
it's magnificent how the UK scenes come on, and what's really interesting is these hops are not actually new in the UK. Most of them were developed in the 1970s, and they were parked for being too American. But that's what everybody wants.
Don't forget, most of the American varieties are actual. So German, Czech, and English hops are known as noble varieties. They're the sort of the kind of equivalent of the grape world to the the French grapes that they now. If you imagine, why am I going down this avenue? I don't know a great deal about grapes, but the New World grapes that are grown in New Zealand are actually European grapes that are just grown in a different climate, different terroir. And so a lot of the American varieties of hops are actually noble hops, many from Germany and some from the UK, that planted over there just give you, they're like, just completely different flavours and characteristics, and they kind of turn up to 11.
Kind of like Lee when he goes on holiday, because he's different in the UK to when he goes abroad.
I am not your typical
Sorry, Polly.
But I mean, what Ollie's talking about here is what the wine producer or the grape grower would call the impact of terroir.
Terroir, climate.
So terroir is the culmination of environmental factors that are going to relate to the growth of something. So that could be the mineral content of the soil, it could be the amount of rainfall, it could be the altitude that it's at, it could be all sorts of things.
Well, terroir is actually more the soil. But then, if you look at, it could be its altitude, weather. So I've been over to the States a few times to Yakima for harvest. And, some grapes hops, mainly grown on the flat, but they are actually now trying to grow, I don't know what degree, maybe 45 degrees, up on the mountainsides, and just see how far they can take it, because they get different sunlight will hit them at different times and impact them differently that way. But the one thing the Americans, so in Yakima, I'm going off on one here, sorry. In Yakima, where most of the American hops are grown, the terroir it's volcanic ash in the soil, and they're surrounded by the mountains that they're surrounded by. Mount St Helens, I think it was early 80s it erupted, but there's Mount Adams, Mount Rainier as well. They're all volcanic, so it's volcanic ash. I don't know whether years and years and years ago a meteor hit the valley, because it's very looks like something's hit it, but whatever it is, it makes for growing fantastic hops. Plus they get on the same latitude as the south of France, so they get very little rainfall, they get very little cloud cover, so they get a lot of sunshine. But then the American growers are able to irrigate the hops, so they give them the exact amount of water that they need at the right time. Whereas over here, we get plenty of water, and so we don't, we're reliant on Mother Nature, and the terroir is completely different.
And the two things that are considered the most important to the growth of a hop are certainly in its potency of flavour, is the intensity of sunlight to which it's exposed, and the consistency of water supply. So if you're offering irrigation and you're nearing enough in a desert, which is what
It is a desert,
then it's why their flavours are so much more intense. And then New Zealand is a different climate, and Australia is a different climate again, which I'd say in terms of its potency, its boldness of flavour, is somewhere between what we have in the UK and what they have in the US.
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of equate it is to look at something like a Marlborough wine, which I completely forget which grape that was, or
Sauvignon Blanc.
It's Sauvignon Blanc, but when you trace its heritage back, it was a French grape, but it's now grown over there. And so it's a really good example of, if you were to taste a wine that was made out of that grape in France versus a Sauvignon Blanc, the parentage is the same, but they are worlds apart in terms of flavour, and it's very much the same with hops.
It's a good link back to this beer, because Sauvignon Blanc, obviously a New Zealand wine, and the hop itself that we used in this beer to finish it off was Nelson Sauvin, which is
It comes from the Nelson region of New Zealand. It's called Nelson Sauvin because it is considered to have a very Sauvignon Blanc-like character, so a white winey, gooseberry kind of character to it. And then that's what we dry hop this particular one with. And I think we've got that gooseberry in there. I think it's actually added almost a kind of lime-like finish to it, which is something I'd associate more with another New Zealand hop called Motueka. But we seem to have extracted that somehow from this Nelson.
And it's 4.5%, so relatively low ABV for us. So we've had two beers so far this session, a 2.5% and a 4.5%. This is kind of quite low for us, but we're gonna make up for it in the next couple of beers. So, what do people think in the audience? Have you tried this beer yet? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Is it something you like? The cask version of this is so good, in my opinion. The keg version is good, but the cask version is probably one of the best casks I think we've made this year, until we launch the beer we're going to talk about in a bit.
I'd second that. I absolutely love this on cask. Cask has a slightly warmer serving temperature, so the flavours come through slightly differently to the colder keg. I think it just really sings on cask.
41 minutes.
Really happy with this one.
It's pretty good for me. 41 minutes.
This is good. Sorry, before you go on. What you won't be familiar with is our online community has what they call the sweepstakes, where they bet on which of us is going to the loo first, which is the most pointless bet in the world because it's always him.
Did you get a time on it as well?
41 minutes is good for him, actually.
Yeah. Okay. I was just going to comment on the beer. It's definitely got. If you were to ask me about obviously the insider info that we just talked about, but on the palate, it's definitely, I pick out Nelson, the Nelson Terroir, which in itself, American hops and British hops and German hops, they have a footprint that runs through them, I think. So even though you say like Motueka, you get lime from Rawaka, a little bit of lime from that one as well. but that's more similar to Nelson Sauvin. Nelson Sauvin is, yeah, you're right, gooseberry, grapefruit. I get from in the finished beer. So that's the one that's really at the fore for me there. But having not brewed with Harlequin, I can't do it.
But
I can't say that I could pick it out as a distinctive flavour.
Whether you can or you can't, I think one thing you would agree with me on is, if you were drinking that blind, would you consider it to have English hops in?
Not necessarily, no.
No.
Which just tells you the way, the effort that the guys at Farrums in particular are putting in is incredible. I can talk about hops all night, but the UK industry doesn't have the same investment as the US industry, because, like you alluded to, the hops that come out of the US are fantastic, and as with anything in America, they just go big and go bigger. But they are investing year on year so much money into their farms, into their processing plants, into all this, and English hops have all of a sudden taken a real backseat, and so it's actually a job trying to persuade farmers to grow hops in the UK and to continue to grow hops. So for some farmers to develop these new varieties and really get stuck in and get them growing, I think as brewers for the UK hop industry, I'm fully behind supporting that. But no, some of the hops that are coming out of the UK at the minute are fantastic.
Like Olsen there, so the US has been in growth for years. The amount of acreage that is committed to hop growth goes up year after year after year.
There's one. Sorry.
But in the UK, it is unfortunately in massive decline.
I've been to a farm in the States, one farm, and their acreage is bigger than the UK.
Wow.
Total acreage. The hops are very much on the decline in the UK, and I think it's an industry that we shouldn't let slide. So I think as brewers, and I'm looking forward to next year, trying to champion and promote new England hops, English British hops in beer. I think it'd be a shame if we were to kind of stand idly by and let that go.
I think there was.
And they're doing us they're doing us a massive favour by producing hops like Harlequin.
There's an onus on us, there's a responsibility that we should bear on our shoulders to use these hops, otherwise they will not be there for the brewers of tomorrow. In the same way that you guys need to keep going to the pubs, otherwise the pubs won't be there tomorrow.
So one of the things we wanted to lead on to after briefly talking about the beer, I say briefly, we've talked about the beer a fair bit now, is Roosters and the heritage and everything, the history behind Roosters. But I think before we do that, we might all need to do a get well wish to your brother, who's who? Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, Tom was meant to be here. Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Tom's Ol's twin brother, who we hilariously always mistake for each other, even though they don't look they look similar, but you can easily tell them apart.
He's 40 minutes older than me.
Is he?
40 minutes, which it's only a matter of time, isn't it? But I find it really disturbing to be able to know what you're going to look like in 40 minutes. and it's that. It really.
I wish you'd been in the room too.
He did that plenty of times.
I hope he's watching at home, and if he's not, I'm going to be double disappointed with him for not only just dibbing on us tonight and
no, he's not been well today.
He's poorly, so he couldn't come out, and so he should be in his sick bed at home watching this.
So,
and wishing he was here.
Like symptoms, pending on a test, maybe COVID, we don't know yet.
Yeah, and luckily, well, he wasn't at the brewery today anyway. He'd had the day off, so.
Well, at least you don't have to pay him sick pay then if he's on holiday.
Yeah.
I saw today on Sky News that 3.5 million people.
I thought you were going to say he was on Sky News. Tom's ill.
3.5 million people in the UK
news.
currently have COVID.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't exactly be a big surprise to find out that that's what Tom had.
No. But no, he's gutted not to be here, to be honest with you.
No, it's a shame he couldn't be here, but also I'm glad you came. I'm glad you're now our favourite.
Well, someone's got to be.
So, we'd like to hand the floor over to you to give a little bit of an intro to Roosters. before I do that, I'm just going to give you guys a little couple of tidbits. I've written on the prompts there that you celebrated your 25th a couple of years ago. Apparently that must have been 4 years ago if you're in fact 30 next year.
2018 we did our 25th.
And people like myself and Wayne may well think that our craft journey started by consuming something like Jaipur. But when I actually think back and think when I was probably first exposed to US hops, and when I probably had a beer that really should have been considered craft at that point in time, it would have been Yankee. And that would have been, what, how long ago?
I don't know, I didn't know you then.
How long have you been drinking it?
What I'm trying to say is Roosters has broken some ground and they've done it for years. So they did it with the use of American hops, and you were the guys that first canned beer in the UK?
No.
One of the first?
No, carry on if you want, I'll correct you in...
Well, I think it's probably better coming out of your mouth.
Well, canning wise, we were, after Beavertown,
Forpure maybe?
Camden and Forpure down in London, we were the first brewery,
First in the
independent
north,
brewery outside of London to can our beer.
The only one's important then.
We got, sorry?
The only important one.
Exactly. we got like 6 months before Magic Rock even did, you know, which they were absolute trailblazers. So
I think he's asking you not to
where
stop
do you want me to? Do you want me to start at the beginning or?
Well, I
somewhere in
think
the middle,
the easiest thing to do is assume that your audience knows nothing about Roosters. So, when were you founded? What do you do?
Right, okay.
When did you and your family get
So-
involved?
And you've got less than 10 minutes to do it in.
Less than 10 minutes. Okay, right. So the brewery itself was founded in '93 in Harrogate. Bloke who founded it, a guy called Sean Franklin, was by his own admission, a failed winemaker and studied in Burgundy. And in the 80s he came back, and I think he was drinking, it was Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, where he tried that for the first time, maybe in the States, I don't know. And the kind of sensation he got from the hops, from Cascade hops, just blew him away. And he really, you know, I can't talk him up enough that he applied his knowledge of grapes to hops, because they are very, very similar. So he kind of set about and took it upon himself to start sort of playing around with hops in New England, sorry, not New World hops in English beer. And Yankee was one of the first beers he brewed when he founded Roosters, and it just got traction. So back in the day, in the early 90s, I mean, you guys might have tried it back then, I don't know. But it would have been kind of like, to try that beer back then would have been like a Jaipur moment.
Yeah.
And we still brew that beer now, still the same recipe. But it's, you know, people, you're not putting as many hops in as you used to. Well, that's not true, we're just putting more hops in other beers, you know, because of the way the market's going. So the brewery was really kind of got traction with Yankee. I started brewing 22 years ago when I left school. I was at Daleside Brewery in Harrogate, and we predominantly brewed cask beer. I did 4 and a bit years there, and I went over to Copper Dragon in Skipton, brewed there for sort of 6.5 years as a production brewer. The bulk of it was cask as well. So I've got a real Golden Pippin, that was Cascade as well. But I've got a real kind of deep rooted in my brewing experience in cask. So I'd been 11 years in the industry, and then my dad was, at the time, had a small pub company. So one of the pubs he had was Briganti's in York, and he was looking to sell the company, which he did. Sold the chain of like 15 pubs. I was unhappy with Copper Dragon at the time. I don't want to go into why, but they were in a sticky patch at the time, and I wasn't really enjoying it there.
Which duty bill hadn't they paid this time?
So I was looking to kind of move on in the industry. And my twin brother, what's his name? Tom.
We call him Ollie.
Yeah, thanks. He went to university, and he got a degree in media communications, and he from university he went into editing. He was an editor for an industry magazine, and when the first recession hit in 2008, he was last in, first out. So he went off and just started working in pubs again, and started homebrewing because he didn't have a great deal of money. So he started homebrewing, and he was making some amazing beers, which is where Babyface Assassin started. It started in Tom's bathroom. Yeah, it started in Tom's bathroom. So he was making these really nice beers. I was production brewer over Copper Dragon. My dad was, we didn't know, but he was looking to sell the pubs. And so one day Dad just kind of said, when I sell the pubs, you want to go into business? Yeah, okay. So we were looking at starting our own kind of 10-barrel brewery. We looked at premises in Wetherby and around there. And completely unbeknown to Sean at Roosters and his wife Alison, they didn't know we were looking at that. But they knew. I applied for a job there in 2002. There weren't any going, I was told. But Sean was really good. He took me. We went for a pint, and he said, "Look, why don't you do this? Go further afield." So I ended up going to Copper Dragon, and he just said, "Look, just move around a bit and see what happens." So I went to one more brewery, but he knew who I was. He knew who my dad was because they've been friends since the inception of Camera. And Dad used to buy his beers and all of this. They didn't know Tom, but when they were looking to sell the brewery because they were retiring. So out of the blue, they approached my dad and said, "Do you want to buy a brewery?" And we were looking at starting our own. So there was a bit more investment involved, but it made sense. And we were massive fans of Roosters all along, anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's how it came about. So that was 11 years ago. And we took it on back end of 2011 on the site in Knaresborough, and we've since then we've moved the brewery back to Harrogate onto a bigger site, and we've got a tap room in now as well. And we, like you mentioned, we were one of the first to start canning, and we're testing ourselves. We find it's because we're a traditional cask brewery, and I'm blowing my own trumpet. You want to go on it? I'll have a go on it. I think we make fantastic cask beer.
Without a doubt, absolutely without a doubt.
And I like to think all our beers are great, but we have. It's kind of like a stigma where, even though Tom and I are breathing new life into the business and wanting to make the kind of beers that we're starting drinking, and we do make those beers, we're finding it quite hard to actually
convince your existing customer base.
Which is why shortly we're going to go on and we're going to talk about how you do make that transition as the industry evolves.
Yes.
But one of the things that I loved that you did a while back was
One Trick Pony.
You did a beer called One Trick Pony.
Well,
there's a bit of a two fingers salute to.
Yeah, because everyone just thinks we make 4.3% pale ale.
We can do more than we think we can do.
So we did. It was our first ever sour we did. We called it One Trick Pony, or as we know it in the brewery, One Prick Tony. But that was it. It was exactly that. It was, we do find it hard because people pigeonhole us.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's. I'm guessing most people in the audience will have probably tried a Roosters cask beer because you see it in most pubs in York, which is great. But not many of you will have tried a Roosters keg beer because you don't see it in any pubs in York. So this is the real challenge that you guys have got, in that the pubs will love to buy your cask beer, but they won't necessarily rush to buy your keg beer. Yeah. And not because it's not good, because it's amazing beer. It's because they've got this mindset of that's what a Roosters beer is.
Well, to say the brewery's only 30 years old in today's market, we're dinosaurs. And it's crazy.
But if you guys, I hope most of you probably live in York. So if you do, jump on a train. If you haven't already been, go down to their tap room. It's on Hornbeam Park, which is one of the train stops if you're on the Harrogate route, and go and try all their different keg beer, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. They make amazing beer, full stop, regardless of the format. Yes. But people assume they make good cask beer. They do make good cask beer. They make great cask beer. We all know that. But try their keg beer; it's amazing. Or can beer, but buy their cans on their website. It's the same beer. It's just people in their mindset don't seem to have grasped that in York in particular. Why I'm a bit of a hobby horse here, because I find it crazy, because we see you guys at festivals all the time, so we get to try all your different beers, cask, keg or can. So I know the quality beers you make and the different styles, and it's not just a certain style of cask beer, but for some reason in York you just don't seem to see your other styles as much.
We had, it was interesting, Tom and I were with a beer after work yesterday, and do you know the comedian Ed Byrne?
Yeah. He had a pint of ours recently.
He came in.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he came into
He
the
has
tap room.
he has a pre-show pint,
pre-show
and then he
pint.
does a tweet about his
So
pre-show
he
pint.
came in the tap room last night, about 5 o'clock, and I was having a beer. Tom joined me, we were having a beer at the bar, and he walked in and was like, he must be playing Harrigan, he's doing his pre-show pint. And I was there going, please don't ask for Yankee, please don't ask for Yankee, please don't ask for... Because he would have tweeted, I'm having a Yankee, which everyone knows the sport, you know. And he went to the bar, pint of Yankee please, and they're like really good that he's here and enjoying it. But he's got like 500,000 followers or something, and he tweeted it out, you know, having a cracking pint of Yankee. It was like, well, thanks, but at the same time I was hoping he'd go for something. We've got 16 beers on that bar. I was hoping he'd go for one of the 15, but he didn't. Anyway.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, this is the road you have to bear as such. Because, much like Jaipur, I go into a bar and my typical approach is I'm going to buy the thing I've never seen before. But if I see Jaipur, if I see Yankee, that's what I'm buying. Because I know how solid it is. I know I absolutely love it. I can always have something different afterwards, but that's where I'm going to start.
You. So I got, so just to go back to the sort of history a little bit more, where I worked at two breweries that were very cask heavy and cask focused. And Sean, incredible brewer. I've never met anyone with a palate like Sean before, or since. But he was his own biggest critic, so every time he brewed a beer, say Yankee, he would pick fault with it, regardless of whether anyone else would pick fault with it, and he would change it next time, change it this and that, you know, and he'd constantly tweak it because he was his own biggest critic. Where my approach, when certainly at Copper Dragon, we brewed 5 beers. I was there for 6.5 years, we brewed 5 years. So I was like production brewer, and it was always Gordon, who I worked.
What a year.
No, but Gordon, who I worked for, was ex-Webster's in Halifax, and he was big brewery mentality from when we were 10 barrel to 60 barrel on the left. But it was consistency in everything that you do. Raw materials, time, temperature, you know, all of that. And so I had that kind of drilled into me. So when joining Roosters and fortunate enough to work with Sean for 7 months, I learned more in those 7 months than I did in the past 6.5 years. But I was able to marry what I'd learned over 6.5 years, consistency and approach, with quality, you know, with Sean's sort of the quality.
Unfortunately, that kind of approach, that virtue, is somewhat underregarded this year because people constantly. These days, because people constantly chase the next new thing. Is that beer that you're releasing your first iteration of ever going to be as accomplished as something where you've done version 1 tweak, version 2 tweak, version 3, and you've gradually refined it into the thing that you consider to be the best example of what that can be?
I personally find, let's use Yankee as an example, continue to use that example. I personally find brewing Yankee once a week, or twice a week sometimes, that is harder than brewing a new beer every month, because you guys are paying for it. Now this is my ex-boss at Copper Dragon said this to me, and I totally on board with it. You walk in, you sat in a pub, someone walks in, orders a pint of Yankee, goes sit down 20 minutes, and goes back to the bar and gets the next one. That could be the last pint out of that cask. The landlord's then had to change the cask, and he's having his next pint's the first pint out of the next cask. So there's 2 different casks. They could be 2 different batches. That person should not be able to tell the difference. And that is, for me, that is proper brewing, and it's hard to do that, and that's what really drives me on. I love making all the specials that we do, and you know. If they get traction, then fantastic. But for me, it's quality and consistency.
And that's serious business. And one thing that all did in moving to your new brewery is there was a certain part of your previous kit where there was contact with copper, and that would have influenced the flavour of the beer. So you had a certain part replicated.
I did.
So there was a certain amount of surface area of copper.
So moving to the new site, I designed the whole kit, and it was built in Burton-on-Trent. And I wanted to replicate the surface area of the steam jackets in the kettle, even though we went to a bigger size, so we could achieve a similar boil. But yeah, you're right. So on the old site, the hydrator, when we're mashing in, part of it was copper pipe, and the spar jam was copper as well. So those trace metals are actually quite important in when you've got a house yeast like we do. Those trace metals are really important for the yeast to perform the same way every time. So yeah, you're right. I worked out the surface area of the spar jam, and everything we've got now is stainless steel. The spar jam is stainless steel, but we have on both kits we've got a small kit and a big kit. But I've got the exact same surface area of copper pipe. Within this, there's stainless steel, copper, and then stainless steel, so that we can get those trace metals into the beer. And same with on the hydrator, it's about that long, the pipe. But it's attention to detail like that. We moved 3 years ago. I've been thinking about it for 6 years, and that was stuff like that I was thinking about was what I don't want to. No one likes putting beer down the drain. But for the first brew on the new site, we commissioned it with Yankee because we wanted to be able to. That's the benchmark.
And I think something else you did, Joel, was. You didn't want people to know when that transition happened in terms of the beer across the bar. So you didn't tell anyone.
No, we didn't say that we moved to a new site or anything.
Nobody
like that.
drinking in a bar would have known that they were drinking the first batch from the new
or the last batch and the first batch. Yeah, just purely because if you give someone, whether it's there or not, if you offer someone something to look for, they'll find it, whether it's there or not. Yeah. So we didn't want to say, this is the last batch on this site, this is the first batch on this site. We kind of moved.
And we did something similar in taking an original recipe and making it gluten-free.
Yeah.
So we eventually told people, well, you've been drinking it gluten-free for like 3 months.
Yeah.
We just didn't mention it.
So we've got our next beer. So while we get the next beer, we'll answer a couple of these questions because we're a little bit behind. So next beer is Mallowed Be Thy Name. So we're going to get it passed out, and while we're doing that, we'll answer
this
a couple
one's
of
not a question, it's a statement. Lots of love on the chat for Voss. Good. English hops. Would Lee consider making a green hop beer? If we make it, they will drink it. And that's from Peter. So, okay, well, now we have the possibility of using English hops. That's a possibility. Up until recently, I had not considered doing a green hop beer.
Can you use leaf? Kit.
Well, let me expand. So until recently, because we were only going to use US hops, we disregarded the possibility of a green hop beer. So a green hop beer is where you take the hops directly from the field, you don't process them, you don't dry them out to remove the bulk of the water content in them. You literally take them from the field, and inside 48 hours you need to use them inside a beer. In doing so, to get the same sort of like flavour and bitterness extraction, you need to use about 8 times the quantity in weight. So you're talking about a massive amount. And given we were a largely US hop using brewery, that's a big commitment. I'm having to get all of these hops from the US, 8 times the weight. I need them here in 48 hours.
It's not a good looking little carbon footprint.
It's not a great carbon footprint, but what our suppliers now do, Yak and Achieve, is they've taken the green hop thing, they've pelletized it, they've frozen it, we can then bring it over and it's no more impact to the environment than what we currently do.
Yeah, that's right. I've done green hops with English hops, where I've gone down to Herefordshire, set off from Harrogate at 4 in the morning, got down there for within 3 hours.
Time travelling.
Yeah. 3 hours, 7 o'clock, they'd just started harvesting, and I've put them in the van and gone back. I had someone else mash in, and I got back to Harrogate for sort of 11 o'clock.
I'm going to leave you
straight into the boiler.
It's the heaviest stool in the world. So you got back.
Going.
So you got back and to mash in at what time?
Well, someone else matched in normal time, sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then I rocked up with a van full of hops. And I did it, so normally through Charles Fairham where they have the hop walk, you can buy the fresh hops there and then, and
September,
we order them and bring them back. For me, it's like a week into the harvest when they do that, and everyone gets the same hop variety from the same farm. And so then there's a week after there's green hops available up and down the country, but everyone's brewed with the same hop. So I went down on day one of harvest and said, give me something different, whatever they're picking. It was like Admiral or something like that, they're a really early pick. So I went and did that and got it at 7 a.m. They just picked them, and 4 hours later they were in our kettle boiling.
Was it popular?
It went really well, and we just, this was back on the old site, and we did it as it was cask only. I'd be interested to see how, I can do it again, and if I do it again, how it would, if we were to can some, what really wants to be drunk as fresh as possible. So you're only looking at putting like 3 months date on it. So yeah, just see how it came about with how it turned out with a bit of carbonation but there is a noticeable difference. They're very, very sort of green and grassy and very fresh.
I do find some people find them a bit marmitey, as in some people love them, some people really don't like them.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a personal preference thing, like anything. So I actually really like them. I find them pretty interesting. I thought you were going to change the prompt for me, Ant. So while Les is on the loo, we'll do a bit of an update on the next beer. So you've all got a drink of it now, hopefully. So as do I. It's Mallowed Be Thy Name, which is a really interesting beer. So when we went to Norway a couple of months back, one of the things that a lot of Scandinavian breweries seem to really like is marshmallow marshmallow and fruit, heavily fruited marshmallow sour pastry stouts, if that's a thing. They were really popular. We absolutely loved them, me in particular, because I've got a super sweet tooth. So when we were talking about ideas, I said to Lee, let's do something similar. Let's try and do a marshmallow fruity sour, and let's see what we can do with it. And in my mind, because we'd just come off the back of Juice from the birthday, the really thick smoothie style beer, when the guys first started packaging this one, I was like, oh no, what's going on here? But I had the wrong concept mindset. I was thinking of a smoothie, whereas what I'd actually drank in Scandinavia was this. It was basically a much more beer style liquid with a fruity colour. And I think we've hit the nail on the head in terms of the flavour profile I was hoping we'd get to. So Mallowed Be Thy Name is a Iron Maiden reference. Lee mentioned it earlier. So the name, the artwork, everything else, based on the track by Iron Maiden.
If you looked at the artwork for this release, you would see Eddie, which is the character that Iron Maiden have created, and he's holding this big trident up against the flames. So yeah, we basically recreated that as, it's definitely not the Stay Puft Man, because that would get us sued, but it's a similar looking marshmallow type character that has a trident with the fruits on the beer in.
So the idea was there, the concept was there, and like usual, Lee gave me almost a heart attack when I saw the cost of the beer. Fruit costs have gone through the roof, like everything else has, certain berries in particular. So this was pretty mild for us. The last one we did was almost 2 ton of fruit. This was 1.2 tons, so nothing to worry about. Only this fruit was so expensive. So this beer was far more expensive to make than Juice, our birthday beer, which is very worrying because obviously, given the current economic climate, it's hard to keep charging more for beer just because we've used more ingredients. But I think we got the balance right. We got an amazing yield, so that means we got more liquid than we thought we'd get from the batch. That volume of fruit being added more volume into the final packaging.
And am I right in saying you guys wouldn't be happy unless I was making this guy sweat?
So yeah, I think we got to a reasonable balance. It's not the cheapest beer we've ever made by far, but that's because the volume of fruit's gone in there. It's currently rating about 4.02. I say about, it's wrote on the prompt on Untapped, which is an amazing score for a 6.66% beer. Really pleased with it. It's my type of beer. I love super sweet beers. Probably why I need to go to the dentist so often, but yeah, hopefully you guys like it as well.
Yeah, well, inevitably in the UK, we're going to get this traffic light system for everything that we consume, whether it be food, whether it be drink. And at the point at which they introduce calorific content of beer, we're probably going to have a problem.
Yeah, we there's already something, I can't remember what the acronym is, but it's based on high sugar, fat content. It's some sort of thing that the supermarkets in particular have to really be careful of, because you can't promote something that's high in fat or sugar content. So that would HIFSC wouldn't make sense, but it's not that. It's HIF or something or weird like that.
Interestingly, when Brewdog made a big song and dance about putting their calorie content on their cans.
Are they putting it on?
On their cans, and they made a really big song and dance about it. We've been doing that for years.
Why do you do that?
Yeah, we do that. We've always done it. We've been doing it for years, but they made this big song and dance about being the first brewery to do it.
You're not very pumped.
I was about to ask you a technical question on that, which I'm not going to do because it would bore these people. So off camera, I need to dig into how you do
This
that.
is a good question. Sorry.
Yeah. So we've got a few questions to ask from the
but
prompt.
before we get to questions, we do have the next topic to talk about, which is, I think it's mostly directed at you all. So you took on, with your family, a traditional brewery,
Yes.
and then you've had to tread that line of traditional and craft, and then you've had to kind of adapt as everything's gone more towards the craft, more towards the next thing, more towards the ridiculous use of adjuncts, all of that. So how has that been, and how have you done it?
It's a good question. How's it been? We've got some, whether it's sours or IPAs that we're making with adjunct flavours in. So I'm going to say one for example, Roots Rock Reggae. We do a 6.4% IPA, and we infuse fresh pineapple and grapefruit. Not just essence. We infuse it in on the hot side on the brew day, and then during fermentation, so we can ferment out any sugars that are in there. Now we did that as a one-off, and we put our heart and soul into it. Not like we don't put our heart and soul into every beer, but like I say, brewing Yankee is that I really enjoy brewing the same beer constantly, because you've got boxes to tick, and that's a real challenge for me, like proper commercial brewing. But then we brewed Roots Rock Reggae, and it's almost like you treat it from day one all the way through fermentation into package. It's almost like you're wearing mittens and you're like kid gloves or whatever, and you're like, this is really, really special. And so we did it, and so we went, right, we're going to do it properly. We're going to use real fruit, and we made purees ourselves, and we peeling the grapefruit, so we're using the pith plus the flesh and all of this kind of thing, and it was great. That beer's now part of our core range, and we have to do that every time now, right? It's a fantastic beer, it's worth doing it. But yeah, so that's a little bit of an answer to your question.
I have a supplier that will sell you fresh but frozen zest.
Right, well, we'll come on to that, that's good. But thank you. But no, so to try and sort of make the transition, it's hard because we have such a traditional.
I've been told you two are talking too long. Come on.
Oh, sorry, right. Traditional kind of positioning within the market. And actually, if Tom was here, he would agree with what I'm going to say. But I come from brewing cask beer and traditional, my brewing exams and everything. I brew to the letter. To make don't think you'll disagree, but to make hazy beers and to do this and to do that, you might as well rip up everything that you've learned, undo it, and do it completely differently. So I'm a little bit of not that I'm a stick in the mud or anything like that, but I'm so focused on quality, consistency, shelf life, all of this kind of thing. And so it's been, I've never, put up a brick wall or anything to Tom's suggestions or anything like that, or the beers that we make. but it's trying to get that balance of moving away from cask beer that's clean, clear, stable, to then brew something completely opposite.
But
it's
I think one thing that makes a difference, and this is perhaps my opinion only, is you have to brew what you feel true to. You have to brew what you feel passionate about.
Yes.
So I think we are known for silly stouts and silly sours, and I love those things. That's why we make them.
yeah.
So if you're not necessarily feeling it from a style, then would you? Sometimes commercially we have to do these.
I'm just very much. I'm all about balance in a beer. If anything's too this or too that, it's too much. I'm all about balance, and that probably comes from brewing cask beer for so long, where cask beers are all about balance and cleanliness of flavour, if you like. No adjuncts or anything like that. So that's where my background's from. So I'm all about balance. So when we do brew something weird and wonderful, I'm still very much.
This probably brings us back round to the Untapped debate. So the beers they're going to rate the most highly in the world are almost certainly not going to have balance. They're going to have an intensity of characteristic around one thing. There might be a double IPA, there might be intensely hopped, and you might drink one of them and you'll give it a 5 out of 5, but someone offers you a second one and you're like, no, that's enough.
I'm
what
very
we're
much
talking about here is the beer where...
So two things very quickly, because I know we're getting very close. I'm very much, my buzzword, and everyone at the brewery knows it, repurchasability. I want to make beer that someone has one, like you said, Yankee, have one, they're already thinking about the second one, then they decide, oh, I haven't got time for a third. And it's all about repurchasability for me. Because they're the kind of beers I like to. I like to sit on. If I find something I like, I'll stay on it all the time, right? But what was the other thing I was going to say? Sorry, it's completely.
Well, while you think about that, you've led on to a really good point for me. So, some of the, in my opinion, the best breweries in the UK, and I include yourselves in that. So yourselves, Formridge, and plenty of others. Don't necessarily score highly on Untapped.
No.
Because you brew amazing beer that you want to have multiple pints of, and that doesn't rate on Untapped, which is ridiculous, because from a business perspective, that's probably the best thing.
This is what I'm talking about, because the beers aren't extreme enough.
Well,
Apparently to rate highly, a beer has to be extreme.
So to go to a beer festival where they judge overall winners and this kind of, but you can taste, this is fantastic beer by the way, don't get me wrong, but you could have, I don't think I could drink another one of those. It's not a bad beer, don't get me wrong, but I've been at beer festivals where it's
too expensive.
They'll announce, I'm not paying for it. They'll announce
exactly. So you can only have one.
They'll announce the winner at a beer festival, and everyone scrambles to go and find it and have a taste, and you go, Christ, that is fantastic. That smells amazing. It's I can see why that won. And you get halfway through a half, and you're like, I don't want any more of it. It's enough. So it's a payoff there, isn't it?
Anyway, we need to bring that to a close. We need to move on. We're getting camera. So let's start doing some questions.
Yeah, this is a proper tease. Whoever came up with this question is going to, you're really doing it to annoy Lee, I think. So as the Beer O'Clock show is doing its final recording tonight, do you have any other good beer podcasts? So the reason that Lee will be a little bit disappointed was because pretty much in 10 minutes time he was supposed to be joining them live on their last ever podcast, but because we knew that there was no chance we were going to finish in time, he wasn't able to join that.
No, we worked our way around that one because
we pre-recorded it.
It's been recorded tonight. They're not broadcasting it till next week, so I'm sending in an audio clip. So I will still be on that show. I personally am gutted. Hopefully you're aware we brewed with these guys last year. Even before I had a brewery, I was listening to these guys talk about beer. And I've always loved what they've done. It was my kind of feed on the industry. This is where I got my knowledge from. It's where I got my insight from about what was going on in the industry. So I'm gutted that this thing is coming to a close. Do I have a recommendation? No, I need to start looking out for something else. I know Martin, who's half of that team, he's going off to do his career, his running ambitions. Steve, I have a sneaky thinking that he will be back.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we were talking about podcasts earlier, and somebody sat at this table used to do a podcast recently, and I said there's somebody else at this table who loves podcasts, so maybe you two could come up with your own podcast.
You're on Leisure.
Yeah. I did do a podcast. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I did a short.
Who? Tom and Les?
Tom and Les. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, mine was more focused on mental health and all that kind of thing.
So more constructive things than us just talking about beer all the time, which is
but it was. I did it with a chap called Reese. I don't know if anyone knows him, but it's a well-regarded actor and director. But it was focused on mental health. But we recorded it in the tap room. We just literally sat down a pint and recorded ourselves. Just
talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is one of the things that obviously really hit people a lot during lockdown is not being able to talk to people.
Yeah.
So being able to just pubs were such a big thing of that. So let's not go off on too much of a tangent, otherwise that'll tell me off. But I love this question. So who is Ol's top 3 UK breweries? Obviously excluding Brew York.
It's a good question. So Thornbridge, number 1.
Good shout. Yeah.
Timothy Taylor's. And I would probably go. Oh, that's a really good question for a third one. I'm just trying to think of who I buy most of. I do quite like what they are doing at the moment.
Oh.
So there we go.
I didn't see
a steady rolling man.
Steady rolling man, yeah.
Right.
So,
Next one. Relatively speaking, in terms of cost, are UK hops more expensive to brew with than American hops? So that's a difficult question to quantify because per kilo they're going to be cheaper. You're not paying the transportation, etc. But because they have less of an intensity, to achieve the kind of flavour profile we would be going for, you would have to use them in higher quantity. So that kind of then cuts against the sake of
and also, I touched on before, the amount of investment that is going into the US hop industry. You know, we're talking about people spending £20 million a year, you know, for a facility that they use 1 month a year. You know, I mean, so that, they've got to factor in that. It's part of the cost as well. Yeah. But they're doing it for a bloody good reason, you know.
So I got a question here from Derek. Does Roosters have a specific style they specialise in?
4.3% pale ales on cask.
What's the ABV?
Probably move on now.
What's the ABV? Good shout. Well, my own question here. Are you considering anything different in January next year when the new duty changes kick in?
3.4. Well, actually, let's qualify that. So currently, low alcohol beer in the UK that qualifies for a lower rate of taxation is below 2.8%. From the 1st of January next year, that goes up to 3.4%. So one thing we are going to be doing is our entry level pale on cask is 3.7.
Yep.
So we're going to bring that down to 3.4.
Okay.
We'll pay less tax on it. We can sell it hopefully to you guys at a slightly cheaper price point.
Do you know, it's a good question. We do our cask beer. Our lowest ABV cask beer is 3.5. So yeah, maybe we'll do something similar. I forget the question.
Well, I think
our style that we're renowned for, and one of our best customers is Sean at the Maltings in York. 4.3 pale. It sells hand over fist there, and him and one other customer in Harrogate are the kind of reason why Roosters do 4.3 pales, because the volume that they go through, and so we continue that. I'm going to do next year. I'm monthly 4.3 specials. I'm actually going to highlight UK hops.
Oh, nice. So one of the things that we've always done in the past, we've always had a hop changing special pale. But this year on cask we've done a hop focus, as in one specific hop variety, which loads of other people have done. I'm not pretending we're unique here. But one of the things that I've really liked about it is it's sold well, which always makes me happy. But I've really enjoyed some of them. Some of the flavour profiles have been so strong, considering it's just one hop. You don't tend to get balance when you just use one hop.
Yeah.
It's also educational. It's educational for our team. It's educational for you as consumers. If we do it as a Simcoe beer, an Idaho 7 beer, a Strata beer, and that is the only hop in there, then you get to know the flavour of that hop. We get to know the flavour of that.
We've done-
Most beers are about creating symphony, an orchestra. Like you building flavour by bringing together other hops. So one might have a flavour spike there, one might have a flavour spike there, and you get this bigger rounded flavour. There's not many hops that you would ordinarily use on their own, but to learn about these hops, this is the way to do it.
I don't disagree with you whatsoever on that. I've just done a report for my dad and my brother on hop sourcing and all of this, but within that I've had to drill down and talk about hops that we've purchased before and used and done single hop beers with that haven't actually. So going back to what I was talking about, what's in your hand here is in raw material to what's in your glass there.
How they translate.
There are so many volatile aromas that you smell here and you think, Christ, that's going to be good in a beer. But they don't transfer because they're volatile. So they've been driven off through boil or fermentation or whatever. And so I've just done a report for my dad and my brother and actually really dug deep into. There are so many new varieties because consumers want something new quite often. So many new hop varieties, but the growers themselves are looking to strike gold. They're all looking for the next Citra, the next Mosaic, the next Equinol. So you'll see varieties that will come to market. Excuse me, and within 4 years they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's so in this report I've done for my dad, I'm saying, look, we can brew with new varieties. Absolutely, we can. Well, from past experience, brewing with when Calypso hit the scene. Amazing on the road.
Everyone wanted to use it,
But in a single hop beer, crap. It's a hop that needs blending. Whereas Citra, Mosaic, Simcoe, Equinol, they are standalone. You can brew single hop beers with those.
The counterpoint analogy that I like to kind of bring in at this point when having this kind of conversation is to compare the use of hops with whiskey. So in whiskey, single malt is the absolute king.
Yep.
You don't blend stuff. It's about having this one thing and that one flavour spike, that one character, that cleanliness. That's what you're after.
I'm going to get a punch off this fella.
Whereas with hops, it is very rare that you would ever get something so satisfying from a single hop. It really is about blending the different characteristics of different hops, playing the orchestra, playing the symphony, however you want to phrase it, that works. But there are these occasional hops, and there are not many, where they can truly stand up in beers on their own. And Cascade is one. And that is the foundation.
Cascade is Yankee, Babyface,
Citra.
Yeah.
So there's lots of Citra is so popular still now. There's loads of beers you could reel off in the UK, cask beers who are Citra, single hop Citra that you would happily go to a session, drink 10 pints of and not think anything of it. There's not many other single hop beers in the UK you can probably reel off that you'd enjoy quite as much. Maybe Cascade, but yeah.
Cascade, Mosaic, I love Mosaic because the name itself actually lends itself to what you get on the rub and in the beer. It's so complex. It's a rainbow of flavours. You know, a proper
some
fruit
people
basket.
say berries, some people say tropical.
And Spring there's another beer at the moment because it's time to move on again. We've got loads of questions which
we're stressing our team out. So, quick fire. Well, this one's easy. Wow from the onliners. The beer we're drinking here, Mallowed, be that name, dangerous, it tastes like squash. What's the reasons for fruits getting so pricey? I can do that very quickly. Well, general economic situation. Brexit's a big factor. We can't get the people into the UK to pick them. So
did you just say floppy hair wanker?
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, so it's not like we've grown less fruit.
Not talk about YouTube,
but we've not had the ability to pull the fruit out of the field.
Yep.
Simple supply demand economics. If there's less of it available, the price goes up.
And we'll probably buy them all from you.
So there's another quick one. Any chance of Yano in cans? No. Yano's our brewer who's been doing an experimental cask range for us at the moment. It is a cask-focused range, so unfortunately that is the point of that, it's cask.
And I can do this one quickly. Any more beers planned in the Eagle series? So it's not entirely new, but we are about to re-release Imperial Eagle, which is the dipper strength version of Eagle, which has had some tweaks. and that will be packaged in about 2 weeks' time, be available early to mid-August.
Do eagles tweet, or do they make other noises?
That's terrible.
So next beer is Reese's with a... sorry, go on.
No, just this for all. What beers are you excited about from Roosters? We've got some some new beers that are lined up. Most of all that I'm really excited about is our barrel aging project.
Yes.
So we've just put a beer into bottle a couple of weeks ago that's been sat in brandy barrels for 7 months. We've got more beers. We've got Imperial Stouts up there. We've got Wild Life. I don't know if you've ever tried Wild Life. It was that was a soured saison. So I
in the barrels that we shared the transport of.
Burgundy ones. So I did a Pinot Noir barrel. So I kettle soured a beer, and then fermented it out as a saison, and then it went into the Pinot Noir barrels, and it's one of the best beers I've ever made. So I'm very excited about version 2 of that.
Yeah, when we first came to see a new site, you had it in barrel and you were talking about it as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that.
Right, so we are on to the next beer.
I'm sorry, I'm not staring off camera. I'm just trying to read the tiny scroll prompts that Lee did this time round. So
something's gone wrong in the edit here. So you're reading the second box down.
So 12%. So it's Reese's with a spoon.
I think it might be my turn as well.
It is you. Yeah. So Reese's with a spoon.
So the next beer up is we are going to finish on a high. We are going out at 12%. So this is a peanut butter and chocolate Imperial milk stout. So Reese's with a spoon. You don't need to be a genius to see where the inspiration for that one's come from. So Reese with a spoon, the lady who's most famous for Legally Blonde, hence the artwork on the can, which is very reminiscent of that particular film. And then you will see that she is attempting to eat Reese's with a spoon. Yeah.
I don't know what we did there.
Do you come up with the beer style on the name? Genuine question.
Lee sketches the images out as well.
So all that's just asked is one of the most commonly asked questions we get is, do you come up with the beer first or do you come up with a name first? This one was definitely a name first.
Right.
But they're into universal answers to that.
I want to come back to the plum thing. But carry on.
Oh, no. The name came afterwards. This was one that was shared on the ideas thread. So I'm pretty sure Sam came up with this, like usual. So we already had this beer in tank. I'm pretty sure we did.
Was it not me? Have I just made that up?
You're taking credit for it.
Well, apologies, Sam, if that is true. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sam
bollocks. Right. Sam, I really apologise. I think Sam was in the room. She may not be now.
No, she left earlier.
Yeah. So Sam is our...
She was sick of you taking credit for everything she did.
No, I'm sorry, Sam. It should be no surprise because Sam is our richest vein of beer names.
Yeah.
Her and her wife are always coming up.
We have a chat thread, and basically we... if we have a new beer coming up and we don't have a name or concept for it, we put it on that, ask the team for ideas. Anyone whose name gets used, they get a case of beer once it's packaged. And then, so Sam, you probably owed a case of this beer. And then, we also, quite often though, the beer name does come up first and then we have to brew a beer around it. But this one was good.
I thought we had the name first with this one, but apparently not. Well. But anyway, back into what this beer is. So, Reese's Pieces, Reese's Buttercups. Hopefully you're aware of these things. A lot of the American treats are making it over these ways. And it's basically a peanut and chocolate sweet, but American chocolate's different. It's a little bit more savoury, it's a little bit more saline. So we've actually introduced a little bit of salt into this to make sure it has that more American-like chocolate characteristic. And we added some brown sugar. When I'm doing big dark beer, I like to introduce things like treacles and dark sugars. Brings in a molasses-like character. Sometimes gets a little bit of a licorice element going on in there.
So one of the weirdly on my lunch today, they had this. I can't remember. It was smothered Reese's. It was called. So I bought it, and it was actually a giant pretzel. This is a Reese's product, giant pretzel covered in the Reese's pieces, whatever they call them, and then the whole thing melted in chocolate. It's a pretzel version of this.
That was lunch.
It was so good. Yeah, I that was. I just had loads of them for lunch.
I had a sandwich.
It was so good.
And a cheese toasty.
Too savoury.
So to introduce the chocolate element, we've used a thing called Chalakka, which is imported from the US. It is liquid cacao nibs. So working with cacao nibs are what you would make chocolate from. The tiny little, really kind of intensely bitter things about this size. You really wouldn't want to eat one on their own. That's what they adapt into chocolate, but we'll put that into an infusion tank. We cycle the beer across those cacao nibs ordinarily, but that was kind of a little bit cumbersome. So we got them in a liquid form in the US instead. We pour them in, they sit in there, the flavour of that comes out into the beer, and then,
And that as well. Cacao nibs smell amazing. It's like intense chocolate smell. And you taste them, they're bitter and horrible, so you don't want to eat them. But same with the liquid version. Smells amazing. It's like a real intense hot chocolate, or cold chocolate because it's cold. So not like I've eaten any.
Cold hot chocolate.
But it's so good. And that one actually does taste better than the cacao nibs. You could actually probably mix that one with milk and drink it. It was it's really nice.
It's very tasty. I don't personally have a sweet tooth, and I've got the production guys coming around to mine for a barbecue tomorrow. So I'm going to finish this because it's so good. But it is it's exactly as you've described it.
So one interesting thing we found out was we may have sourced the peanut flavouring from a certain Swedish brewery's collaboration with a English brewery at some point, and we haven't sourced it, so we found out where it comes from, and we contacted the Swedish manufacturer who makes it to get their peanut flavouring, and they were like, how do you know the name of that batch, really? And why are you contacting us?
They were really standoffish.
Yeah.
They were like, you're in the UK, we don't sell in the UK, how do you even know about us?
So me and Lee are off to Sweden next month, so we'll bring some back with us.
Very good. I don't know what I'm going to say. That was almost like I was interviewing you then.
I'm going to say something about Untapped this time, and it's not going to be negative.
Go on.
One of the reviews we got from this beer was, I've had so many peanut beers and nobody gets it right. Trust Brew York to actually nail it.
Thank you.
Very good. Well,
That was a good one.
If anyone knows anything about peanuts, it's
You've got to deal with 9 bad ones to get the good one.
So I don't know. Are we wrapped?
I know we've got a few more questions, and we've got like our last content.
You asked about puns, so we're going to come to the pun thing.
So
Did you take away the others from earlier?
no,
I think it was 2 that have landed in you.
So you might want to know about what we've been brewing today. Definitely on Friday.
Oh my God, we really sucked up. We never said. Right, when we did the Roosters section, we were supposed to talk about what we brewed today.
A very loose today.
So what we're trying to do is we have to be honest and say that Roosters is known for the 4.3 classic pale. So what we're going to do is that type of beer here.
Cask beer.
Yeah. We're doing a predominantly cask beer. It's only going to be put in a small amount of cans. You as our subscribers will get it. And then when we come across and brew with you later in the year, we're going to do the Sleet adjunct heavy thing.
Yeah.
Because that's not ordinarily what you would do, but that's what we do.
You'll impart what you do onto us, and we'll impart what we do onto you. That was the idea.
Which is what collaboration should
Yeah,
be.
7 years ago that we met, and we said, about 5 years ago, let's do something. So,
it took a while.
If anybody hasn't yet seen the picture I put on Twitter of the day that the 3 of us met, it's worth a look at it.
It's so funny.
No, it's not.
This is one of the key things that collaborations are about for us. We love the camaraderie, the interaction, the fun that we have. We also like to try and learn something from each other, and hopefully you guys at home actually enjoy what we produce as well.
Take home thing, isn't it? It's to learn to collaborate with someone who doesn't necessarily do what you do, or does things better, or does things differently, and to share that knowledge.
Hopefully in a good collab, you're doing something that you maybe not done before, you may be working with an ingredient you've not done before, and bare minimum, when you're in their brewery, you're walking around with your smartphone camera going, that's a bit different.
Yeah,
maybe I could do it that way.
Yeah.
And as an industry, we are incredibly open to that kind of thing.
It's one of the best things about the industry is just how friendly and that we, that on our level. It happens on the big levels as well, the macros and everything. But it's all about sharing an experience because everybody's got the same common interest, which is what is in that glass at the end of the day. And
but can you imagine another industry where somebody goes, "Can I just come into your business, bring my camera,
the powder and soup industry,
everything that you're doing,
all over it.
Take loads of photographs of everything that you're doing,
not at all.
and then I'm going to go away and try and do what you do and do it better."
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen elsewhere.
No, it wouldn't at all.
I was just laughing a little bit then because I was looking and thinking, I said to Anne, let's have 2 cans of Reese's between the 3 of us. And then I looked how much Lee's got. I was like, has he drank the whole can? I was like, I realised we've all got a can each. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it's alright, my fault.
Yeah. He's got a pint of Reese's. Sorry, Polly.
And unlike you two ladies, I'll say,
Alright, mate. So, go on. But
let's move on to some more questions. So off back of Beer O'Clock, will there be a rebrew of Red Dancing to commemorate? So
we'd love to.
Yeah, we brewed a beer with them last year. It was called Red Dancing. It was a red IPA.
With Andy elusive as well.
And sorry, yes, good mention. At that point in time, we said commercially we wouldn't brew it again. Red IPAs, great style, bad sellers. We don't need to do a beer to commemorate them moving on because Leon C Brewery has done that.
Okay.
They did a beer. They did a beer called Undisputed Era, which I think is a perfect title.
That's nice. Yeah.
So they've done a beer called Undisputed Era. So if you want to drink a beer that is a tribute to everything they've accomplished in the last 10 years, that's the beer.
I tell you what, to answer the other question that came onto the Beer O'Clock show, in terms of recommending other podcasts, it's more from a brewing perspective, but a podcast I used to listen to 10 years ago, the Beersmith one, American Chap. That was a really good one.
I want to see it's called Brown.
Yeah, I think so. That was a really good one. Anyway.
But that's more if you're a home brewer.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Actually, I will give one recommendation. If you're wanting to keep on the pulse of the UK brewing industry, maybe Matt's on Pinnacle.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's a very good shout.
So got one here from doesn't say who. Do Roosters struggle against the surge of new breweries and beers when they're known for such reliable traditional beers? Everyone seems to want something new. We kind of covered that.
For what, sorry? Reliable traditional beers. Yeah, we do see a bit of a struggle. It's something that I wouldn't say baffles us because we know the quality's there and the consistency's there. But it is a bit of a struggle where, and not naming names, but we'll try a beer that's of a similar style that we've done before and try and think, why has ours not got the same traction as that? Because ours might be, in our opinion, better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a struggle.
There's certain breweries out there, and they're absolutely brilliant at what they do. They are very focused on a certain hazy, hoppy sector of the market, and they make great beers in one specific style. And I don't think there's any of us breweries who do different things. But both of us say I think we're in the same category here. We don't make hazy modern beers in people's eyes as well as they do, and I think people think the same of you guys. Even though I'm sure we would happily sit and drink our beers over there.
It's interesting because I've had to rejig anyone who's been down to the tap room in our tap room in Harlequin. I've had to rejig the foyer for the tap room to move things around. So I've had to hang 17 new awards that we've won this year for different. Thank you. Oh, do that again. Sorry, I've got paper. So we've won, and they're for different beers. They're not, they're for across our range of beers. And we're winning these awards, so we're obviously getting recognition within the industry or whatever. But sometimes they don't translate as sales.
And there's something something called hype in our industry, and hype means a lot.
I think one thing that
it's slowed down. But a few years ago, 5 years ago, it used to be every 6 months you'd have somebody would have 6 months of fame, if you like.
They're on a pedestal, and everything they do is amazing.
Awards are fantastic, but they don't compare to the hype that builds. We won Best IPA in the UK maybe 3 years ago, and we discontinued that beer because it doesn't sell enough.
I was down at Beerex when it was in Sheffield a few years ago, and Tom from my brother's side of the business, he won a business award for all the hard work and everything that he put in our branding and all this kind of thing. And he got 2 awards. And our then, our owner, then sort of national sales rep, came to me and he went, "Well, he's won 2. How many have you won?" I said, "Well, I've won none, but I prefer a full order book." Mr. Sales Rep.
Yeah.
That's what I prefer. It's nice to win the awards, get recognition, but
yeah, exactly. What comes from it?
It doesn't necessarily translate in sales.
If you won, the only thing that would probably make a difference to your sales in the UK, if you won Beer of the Year at the Great British Beer Festival, then you get great sales. Anything subordinate to that, it's not really going to affect your sales.
So that's why we've entered Juice Forsyth and Cask at this year's GBBS. Genuinely, we didn't enter it. They've taken 2 kilderkins of Juice Forsyth, which we only ever put into cask on occasions. But it's a fucking great beer on cask. Well, you guys do Roots Rock Reggae on cask. It's a great beer on cask. It's not a beer style you'd necessarily assume would be that. So before we do these questions, let me just cover off the key points in case we run out of time. So what's coming up next YouTube?
No, before we go into that, sorry, I've got to do this. Russ, this is you, isn't it? Yeah. So I can see the different handwriting. It's clearly come from Russ, Wayne's dad, our maintenance manager at the back of the room. Maris is tasting the dogs. Maris being our interpretation of an English bitter. It's apparently tasting the dogs. Why aren't we canning it? Okay. When's your birthday, Russ?
Tomorrow.
I seem to remember it's about Christmas time. Okay. So you're going to have to wait for that one, I'm sorry.
My brother's message,
Is he watching?
35 minutes ago saying, "Tell Wayne it's HFSS." So I can't whatever that was all about.
Well, I'll tell all on camera. It's not funny, 21 minutes.
I mean, Rachel, our new marketing manager, I think you need to listen to this one. How about a golden ticket in the subs box? Winner gets a voucher to spend in the shop. What do we think of that as an idea?
Oh, that's brilliant! They get to spend money in Roosters shop. That's amazing.
We actually do something like that. Everyone who subscribes to our box, and if you don't want to subscribe, you bloody should now, right? But we take a can out of the mix, and we, rather than the date on the bottom, we scrub. No, as well as the date, sorry. We write winner, chicken dinner, and if you're the one who receives that can and you spot it, get in touch and you get a load of goodies. So you can have our idea.
We're stealing that one. And Rachel, I must apologise. I accidentally demoted you there. You are not our marketing manager. You are head of marketing.
So what I was about to say before I was rudely interrupted by these two was what's coming up next month before we do more questions. So next month. Oh, by the way, the beer we brewed today is actually going to be called.
Jesus, we never said the name, did we?
Yeah.
So we wanted to call it. Tony's left, unfortunately, my stepdad, but he has the epitome of the Yorkshireman, and one of his favourite phrases is "how much." So we wanted to call this beer "how much." Turns out somebody's beat us to that. So we were then going to call it Yorkshire War Cry, but we considered the use of the word war to be insensitive to the current worldwide climate, so we've gone with Yorkshire Battlecry. That's what we're calling this.
4.5%. We're going up in the ABV. 4.5% pale.
Yeah.
We've also got the other beer we've got coming up in next month's YouTube session is the Flores Guava, which is Lee's favourite game. 5.5%.
So this beer is conceived by our head brewer Tom.
His favourite game.
It's a maple peach. Hang on.
Flores Guava.
No, that's
Give me those secrets again. Flores Guava is a Sabro hopped. With guava
coconut. Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus, I was almost doing next one's beer.
Peach.
Yeah, and the reason Wayne made that dig about the game was I didn't get the reference with the name of this. I didn't know that there was a TV. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a TV show where people apparently do this floor is lava thing.
So my girls love it.
Next beer on the tasting is Yorkshire Parky. So we're bringing Yorkshire Battlecry out launches 1st of August. Anyone in the audience know the relevance of 1st of August? Yorkshire Day! Yeah!
Yorkshire!
So,
Yorkshire Day beer as well.
yeah. So there's going to be loads of Yorkshire Day beers, buy them all, including Yorkshire Parky. It's 5.4, I can't read that, 5%, Yorkshire Parky and inspired stout. And then we've got probably what Lee quoted in our availability meeting today is the best beer we've brewed this year. And he's only said that because we're not going to have much of it. So we've got a really terrible yield, which is annoying, but it's going to be a great beer. Tiramisu Tom Coco. So 7.5% coffee and tiramisu.
It's the Imperial version of Tom Coco with amplified chocolate and coffee.
Yeah.
And truly, it is epic.
And that's come from someone who doesn't like coffee.
I ordered 48.
I think I'm a bit weird in that I would never drink coffee, but coffee and a beer I really like.
I know.
My mum's in the audience when she's when do you drink coffee? So I don't drink coffee, man. I drink coffee with alcohol. It's called beer.
So other key features, Haze Wave. So we're off to Helsinki next week. So we're off to we're going to Helsinki. So we're flying there next week, and we're doing a festival called Haze Wave. So we brewed the beer for Haze Wave. It's a 5.2%. Like hazy modern pale beer, Belmer and Simcoe hopped. It's we've got it in cans in the fridge downstairs. Really cool beer, really easy going. So that launches next week, but you can buy it downstairs now. and then we've got a load of events coming up. So see what I can read. So the one that I've just mentioned.
Let me alternate. So 21st of July.
Yeah, no way I'm pronouncing that.
Where would the
Oral. Ojgonskoski.
We're doing a tap takeover at a bar that we cannot not pronounce the name of in Helsinki.
Right.
Moving it closer to me is not going to be able to pronounce it.
Let's have a look. I'll do the beginning.
It's got your name.
You can do the middle bit.
Idge.
No, that says Jen.
Oljenkoski.
Oljenkoski.
And that's a restaurant bar in Helsinki. So we're pouring there on Thursday, tap takeover, and then Friday, Saturday we're doing 2 events: Haze Wave in Helsinki, and
so Helsinki you'll find me and Wayne over there for the Friday and the Saturday, and then other members of our team will be across in Manchester.
So Andy and Sam. So they're forward at Manchester.
And then the week after that, 28th, 29th, 30th of July, we're heading down to Reading. On the 28th, we're doing a tap takeover in Nag's Head. And then the 29th, we're brewing with both Elusive and Siren. With Elusive, we are making a West Coast IPA.
Oregon Trail. So Elusive's Oregon Trail with our choice of hops. So we've done an Oregon Eagle blend. So Big Eagle Oregon blend. It's going to be awesome. So they're actually brewing that on
I'm
Thursday
pushing for it to be called Oregon Eagle. I think that feels like the natural name for it. And then that evening we're Big Trail,
yeah.
And then that evening we're doing a rare beer tasting in Elusive's tap room
on Friday night.
Before we then all disappear into Reading for a few beers. And then on the Saturday we're at Siren's Time Hop Beer Festival, which is being held at Reading University, I believe.
So subject to train strikes. So I got an email today saying that our travel there and back might be subject to delays from the trains. Awesome. So
Let's do this.
Go on.
Sorry, you asked the question if anyone's got any puns.
Right. Actually, have we had any puns come in from the audience? We were
book
talking
puns.
books, we were talking authors. Have we had anything?
What was that one?
Yes, yeah, what have you got? Right. But please, sir, more. Please, sir, more. As per all of them, yeah. Sorry, that's very good. We'll have to hold that back for maybe next year. We've done like 2 small beers this year, but please, sir, small.
One small might be too much.
Goodness me.
Question then, the barrel age numbers, do they have any relevance to how long they've been in there?
No, the rack numbers that we've got on are just for us. For we've got a spreadsheet that tells us what's in what.
So for the online audience, if you were to come to our new tap down here, what you would see is a wall of barrels. It's that isn't even everything that we're barrel aging. There is a lot more than that.
They're the ones that aren't leaking.
It's a selection of the barrels that we have beer aging in, and each of them are numbered. And the numbers are the rack numbers. And then we have a spreadsheet somewhere else that says what. But because we've moved these beers from next door, from our original brewery in the city centre, their location doesn't necessarily mean rack 1 means that's the next thing we're going to package. And for some of them, maybe we do 6 months in barrel, maybe we do 18, maybe we do 12. Yeah, so ignore the numbering, but one thing I love that our team has done is if you go down there and stand next to some of those barrels, they put what we call our beer passports. So
John's at the back, it was his idea.
What they've done is that they've put a little laminated card that tells you about the beer that's in the barrel, or at least in its pre-barrel aged form.
So I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
I want to do my puns.
I'll put us on.
I tweeted this the other day, and I don't think it got the traction it deserved.
I saw 3 of your tweets.
Did you see it? Right, so. Right. So, this is your approach.
You get the
Name first, right.
Go on.
Sorry. Saison Sarandon.
Oh, good.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I went for Rye and Gosling.
Oh.
And the other one I went for was Desline and Lemonade Sour.
Desline
and Lemonade Sour. And if they don't brew it,
So I think
no one will.
right.
Well, I think Des Lynam is worthy of a tribute. I think he disappeared from our tellies way too soon.
Oh, he did. Yeah. But there you go. Sorry. Don't listen to the microphone for that. But yeah, Desline and Lemonade Sour.
So I don't feel like we're behind on time. Can we not do a few more questions?
I feel like I'm going to the loo, so thank you guys. Lee will answer some more questions. I'm going to look to do. Thanks for joining us, and cheers, guys. Thanks to the audience. More Q&As from me.
Well, if I'm still going when you come back, you're coming back on camera.
I'm going to go to beer.
Well, for those of you that can be asked to stay around, and for those of you that are continuing online, we're going to do a few more questions. Are there any plans for a mega gift for the 2-year subscriber box?
Yeah, it's
we are only 2 boxes away. Right, I defer that to my magnificent marketing team, and you will just have to find out in 2 months.
Just something colourful. That's all you need to say.
Right, this is a valid question. Was there supposed to be an extra beer in the subs boxes due to changing the packaging? Last month we got one. So what we were looking to do here was we were looking to adapt the packaging, maybe make a saving on the packaging and translate that into an extra beer for you in your boxes, guys. In the end, we weren't able to make that saving. We've had to carry on pretty much with the packaging or something very similar to what the packaging was. So unfortunately that doesn't allow us to continue with the extra beer. Hopefully you appreciated the extra beer while you had it though. Right. Are you using reverse osmosis for most of our beers? Yes, we are. Are there more English hops we want to experiment with? Could you do a UK versus US series? What do you think on that one?
I think it's it would be interesting in. I don't know whether you compare like for like. You might be apples and pears, comparing the two side by side. interestingly, when I was over in Liverpool at Beerex in March, the UK Cascade I thought was better than the US Cascade, just on the sample that was in front of me there and then. So that would be an interesting kind of thing. I have brewed a UK Cascade before, we're going like 10 years ago, and I wasn't overblown by it.
So what I was talking about here is the beer that launched the craft beer revolution is, without question, Sierra Nevada's Pale Ale, which is brewed on Cascade.
With Cascade, yes.
With Cascade, sorry. And when we were talking about this point of terroir earlier, there are very few hops where you can take them from one region and plant them in another region and it still works.
Yes.
One of the few that works with is Cascade, hence you have UK variants, you have US variants, you have New Zealand variants. They're really hardy plants, not just excellent hops.
Yeah. But it's the first time I've seen the two side by side, and I thought the UK one was superior. Now, that might have been a Duff US batch, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to do a side by side.
I mean, it's a hell of a thing to say. It would
it would be interesting to do that. I think comparing, like I say, it's like comparing apples with onion, with pears or whatever everybody saying is.
I believe that's the phrase,
So it'd be interesting if you could do a series of, get your hands on other UK or US varieties that have been grown in different terroir. That would be very interesting. But I think it's probably a little bit unreasonable to compare. Even though some of these UK varieties that are coming out now are amazing, it's probably a little bit unfair to compare them to US varieties because they're different.
And I wouldn't want them to be held back in their development or the development of the UK industry by doing such an exercise. This is the
last question I was just sitting in front of me. Can we make a beer, can you make a beer, can anyone make a beer to pair with mini cheddars? I have yet to find a beer that doesn't go well with mini cheddars.
And it's almost like you use my mouth to say that, because that's exactly what I would say as well. So, before we finally close out, do we have any questions in the room? No? No, we have nothing more in the room. So all that remains to be said is thank you for joining us. We hope you will be back next time. I just need to remind you that this production has come from our new tap room, our Handley tap room. The opening hours of which are 4 till 10 on Friday, 12 till 10 on Saturday. So please come down here, join us at some point soon. As always, if you have feedback, we'd love to hear it. Get it through to info@brewyork.co.uk. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Cheers for that.